Everybody, I'm sitting here this morning with Dr. Joe Fuhrman here in Aspen, Colorado. He's actually here in town for the Aspen annual ski getaway. And my name is Dr. Chris Miller, and I live here in Aspen. And so I'm honored to get a chance to talk to one of my heroes and physician mentors. So thank you, Dr. Fuhrman, for being here.
My pleasure. So always excited to come to Aspen and to see my old friends again.
It's great. It's great to have you here. So I want to get started by introducing your program to people who aren't familiar with it, because as people are trying to get healthy, they don't know how to get started, and they'll find different plant-based things, different vegan protocols. Yours is unique, and I'd like you to explain what it means to be nutritarian.
Well, the word nutritarian means you realize that what you eat creates who you become and your health, and we try to eat as much nutrients as we can per calorie. So essentially we recognize that eating moderately less calories while we attain micronutrient excellence, a good exposure to phytochemicals and antioxidants, helps people age slower and live longer, because it's the buildup of reactive oxygen species, free radical compounds, and advanced glycation end products is one aspect that accelerates aging, and the other aspect that accelerates aging is when you don't have favorable hormones, especially hormones that are too high, too much estrogen, too much insulin, too much IGF-1 or insulin like growth factor 1. So a nutritarian diet is designed to maximize exposure to those life-extending micronutrients, minimize those things that might be toxic and accelerate aging or create disease, while at the same time having a broad exposure to all the nutrients humans need. So we want to try to check every box that may be helpful to extend lifespan and prevent disease, and not leave anything unaddressed. So it's not good enough just to have high fiber. It's not good enough just to eliminate animal products. It's not good enough just to do a low glycemic diet. It's not good enough just to, we're trying to cover all the bases and then make it taste great. And in doing so, some foods have more power in crowding out and reducing appetite. And what I'm saying right now is that the other flip side, the other part of the nutritarian diet is when we're eating a diet that's high in nutrients and high in fiber, it naturally suppresses the appetite. It makes you feel comfortable eating less calories. So we want nutritarians to be relatively slim compared to Americans. And we become and we stay relatively slim because we're eating a diet that's so nutritionally rich, we don't feel like we have to overeat anymore. And we don't have all this toxic buildup of waste products in our body that's driving us to feel sickly and fatigued. So we feel like food is needed to stimulate our bodies. So people are so indoctrinated to overeating calories because they're raised in this social environment of America where people are eating so many more calories than they need, that even when they switch to a healthy diet, they're still overeating. And so with this high fiber intake, with eating salads, vegetable beans, soups and stews, fruits, nuts, seeds, mushrooms, onions, all the full spectrum, the full portfolio of high nutrient plant foods, we're able to really feel satisfied and be comfortable with eating feeling that the amount of food that we desire is the right amount for our body. We don't desire more calories than our body needs. And so the nutritarian diet, I think, should be recognized as the gold standard in dietary portfolios, so that you don't have to do it, but if you want to do what's going to extend your life and have the most effect of reversing disease, this would be the diet you should look at.
Awesome. Two things actually that are interesting to me about it. One is that it encompasses everything. It's not one diet for reversing heart disease, one diet for diabetes or autoimmune disease or aging well. It's one diet. You've included every aspect of it. We're not just talking low glycemic or alkaline diet, right? So you touch on all these aspects. They all play a role, but your ultimate goal is aging us healthier in long-term studies. So I love that about it, number one. Number two, something that's interesting, what you talk about from so many other diet plans is that you talk about slowing our metabolism, whereas so many plans are about speeding up the metabolism so people can lose weight. Can you touch on that so people understand that concept?
Yes, because the other programs are basically not telling you the truth. You can't really speed up your metabolism to lose weight. And if you can take amphetamines, or if you could take thyroid hormone and take drugs to do so, it would accelerate your death. And even people in the highest, if you take the normal range of thyroid hormone and you compare people in the higher range to the lower range, the top half to the lower half, the top half has twice the amount of cardiovascular deaths compared to the lower half. We're talking in here that the rate at which you age is your metabolism. The metabolism rate is the rate at which you're aging. And if you're speeding up metabolism, you're speeding up the rate you're aging. And as you eat more calories and get overweight, it does speed up your metabolism. The only way to speed up your metabolism to burn more calories is to become overweight. But the speeding up the metabolism doesn't make the extra calories not fat producing on your body. They just don't produce as much fat as they would have if it didn't speed up your metabolism. When you eat less calories, it slows down your metabolism. That means you're aging slower. It means that you can eat less food and not get too thin. When you reduce your calories, you'll still lose weight, but you won't lose as much weight as you think because your metabolism will slow to prevent you getting too thin. And as you reach your ideal weight and your body fat gets low, like my body fat's around 10%, and I'm 65 years old. So my body's not going to want to lose more weight than that because my body fat's already low. So my metabolism will then slow to maintain this body weight, even though I might be 100 calories under my basal metabolic rate. So my thyroid function will lower a bit. My body temperature will lower a bit. My respiratory quotient, the amount of calories burned through breathing, will lower a bit. But those biological modifications the body makes to conserve calories has the effect to slow the aging process and keep you younger. So there's only one fountain of youth. There's only one way to slow aging, and that's by lowering your metabolism somewhat, eating a little less calories in a high nutrient environment, and being nutritionally comprehensive and not missing what you need. Everything else is garbage science. So if you pull books off the 1,000 books published or the dietary programs talking about speeding up your metabolic rate, they just don't know what they're talking about, or they're lying, right? So because it's just not true, right? So you can't. And if something could really be effective speeding up your metabolic rate, like a drug could, or maybe an herbal product could, like if it was true that like green coffee extract can speed up your metabolism to make you lose weight more, then it would be real. To the extent that it can do that, it's really dangerous. Because we don't want to accelerate our age. That's like saying, accelerate your aging process and increase your risk of cardiovascular and cancer death in order to lose some weight now. That's the gimmick, right? Well, that's not a good hook, you know. So it's just, so people are just confused. But the science isn't confusing. The science is straightforward and always says the same thing.
And something I thought also helped me when I was first learning is you pointed out the science that we need to pay attention to is the long-term data, and that they're able to repeat the studies in different populations.
Absolutely. Right. There's lots of hypotheses out there. Every diet out there is a hypothesis. The keto diet, the paleo diet, the low-fat vegan diet, they're all hypotheses. And it's just like a drug comes out. And the drug looks good. They do some preliminary studies on the drug. They test it out, and it looks like it's working. And they put it out there, and the FDA gives it approval. And they put it out in the marketplace, and hundreds of thousands of people and millions of people start using the drug. And then after 5 years of use, they've got to take the drug off the market. Because when many millions of people use the drug, they find there's certain problems with it. They didn't recognize it in those studies, right? It causes heart attacks. You know, the same thing true with all these diets. It's okay to have a hypothesis, but then we have to say, is there data that hundreds of thousands of people have been doing this? Have they been doing it for decades? What do the long-term data show? And what the long-term data shows, and we have so much long-term data today, it's really fascinating. Like, for example, the long-term data shows that that when you eat more animal protein, you increase certain hormones, you increase certain toxins, you increase certain aldehydes, ammonia, uric acid. We have a whole bunch of things that go up in the bloodstream, and it shortens lifespan. We know that paleo-type diet shortens lifespan. So then the question is, well, we know animal protein shortens lifespan and long-term studies with large numbers of people. But what about these keto diets where you don't eat so much animal protein, you just eat more fat like oil and coconut oil and more nuts and seeds and more avocados, and you restrict fruit and you restrict carbohydrate-containing vegetables like beans or carbohydrate like beans, and you just try to keep yourself in ketogenesis, so you don't, and that's going to make you lose weight and keeps your metabolic rate high, and that's going to be a good way to lose weight because they admit that too much glycemic carbohydrate is bad and high glycemic foods are bad, so we got to cut those out because those will take away the ketosis. And we know too much animal protein, so just eat fat. What about that diet? Well, it's not the way the body is made to survive long term. It's not the way humans are designed as a primate. It's a good theory. Short-term studies that go for a year or two will show weight loss and cholesterol drops and the triglycerides might drop. But I can feed you Twinkies for a year and you'll go on a Twinkie diet like Brooklyn. You eat nothing but Twinkies and no animal protein and no oils and no just Twinkies. you'll lose weight because you got sick of eating Twinkies and you reduce your calorie count by to 700 a day instead of eating, you just can't eat so many Twinkies a day. You get sick of them and they make you feel sick. So you're going to feel sick from eating Twinkies and you'll lose weight and you'll have better parameters, but then you'll die 20 years earlier. We need long-term studies. So the studies show that even the carbohydrate restricted diets, when you cut carbohydrates to low levels, when you restrict beans and fruit to do so, you shorten lifespan dramatically. We're meant to be a fruit-eating animal like the primates. And if you cut the fruit out of your diet and try to hold carbohydrates, you're shortening your lifespan. It's getting the whole full balance. What if you cut the fat out? What if you cut all the nuts out of the diet and do these extremely low-fat vegan diets, right? Well, it's a nice hypothesis. People lose weight. They cut all the fat out. They're doing better than they were on a standard American diet. They have the short term. They reverse their heart disease. Their blood pressure lowers. They look better. But what about long term? Well, we have lots of long-term studies on that. And they're studies done in this country. They're the Seventh-day Adventist trials. The Seventh-day Adventist Whole Study 1, published in 2001, showed that looking at the Seventh-day Adventists, some were vegans, some were flexitarians with a little bit of animal products, some ate nuts and some didn't eat nuts. And we look at the data in detail, we find that the vegans who didn't eat nuts and seeds, who tried to cut all the fat out of their diet, had the shortest lifespans of those three groups. The vegans that ate the nuts and seeds lived the longest, and the flexitarians who ate some animal products but still ate nuts lived longer than the vegans who weren't eating nuts. Then we go on to 2018, and we're talking about studies with 88,000 people followed for another 17 years, not a few hundred people. When there's not large-scale randomized controlled trials on large numbers of people followed for decades, we got to go to the epidemiologic studies. And these are many researchers that do meta-analyses. That means they pool together studies. Does the 17-study meta-analyses on nuts and seeds have the same results as the Seventh-day Adventist trials with 88,000 participants? And the answer is yes. They both showed a 39 to 40% increase in cardiovascular deaths from those people restricting nuts and seeds in the diet. So again, imbalancing the diet, either taking out the protein or taking out the fat or taking out the carbohydrate, doing some incredibly unbalanced macronutrient relationship doesn't make the diet better. It makes the diet worse because we need the fat from nuts and seeds to facilitate the absorption of carotenoids, vitamin E fragments, tertiines, lipophilic compounds, a lot of reasons more. We can go into 100 reasons why it enhances lifespan, but that's not necessary right now. But the point is that the Seventh-day Adventist Study 2 came out in 2018, and that further delineated the people who ate nuts and seeds into 5 different quintile of nut and seed consumption. So the 1/5, 2/5, 3/5, 4/5, and 5/5 of nut and seed consumption followed for another 18 years, tracking cardiovascular deaths and overall mortality. And it got the same number as the meta-analysis. It's like all these studies are consistently showing the same thing, that again, the people in the lowest quintile of nut and seed intake, trying to watch their fat intake, had a 39% increased risk of cardiovascular death compared to those in the highest quintile of nut and seed intake, and an increased risk of overall death, which means more cancer deaths as well. And then another study came out. This is like, they all show the same thing. And this recent study showed that nut and seed intake lowered cancer deaths dramatically. And they've even done studies on women who have breast cancer, where they do biopsies of the breasts, feed them some nuts in their diet, and when they go to have surgery to remove the tumor, they do biopsies again. They look at the gene profile of the tumors and find that the gene profile of the tumor is improving, and breast cancer is reversing itself. The same thing we see with green vegetables. In other words, I have this acronym GBOMBS. GBOMBS, greens, beans, onions, mushrooms, berries, and seeds. Because we have a lot of data on these foods, a lot of studies on these foods to show their powerful effect at not just extending lifespan, but accelerating the disease reversal process and taking people who have cancer and causing reversal of early stage cancers and early stage cancer markers. And then when we look at large studies on people, we find that when we feed them to people who have cancer, they live longer, have less cancer recurrence, and have less death from cancer in those groups. We do have a lot of evidence to show that diet makes a tremendous difference, even when people already have cancer. So it doesn't, because people will say, well, that's nonsense. You can't cure cancer with diet. But I'm not using the word cure, but the data shows very convincingly that you do extend lifespan when you feed people right who have cancer, you have many more people not getting cancer recurrence and dying, and you have many more successes of people who make complete recoveries from cancer. It's not so diet does make a big difference when people have cancer. You can't deny that. The data is there in these large-scale studies.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
If people have cancer or another chronic illness and they're looking to get started or looking to learn what you just told us, if you had certain foods and more about the G-bombs, how do you recommend they get started on this?
Well, I have the basic book I like people to start with is The End of Dieting, mostly, because people are so misinformed about dieting, and they go on one diet after another. See, I want people their diet is this. This is their diet. You eat to prevent cancer, and that's your diet. Now, you're not going to go on a diet to prevent cancer for a week or two to lose weight. You're eating this way for the rest of your life. Because I'm telling people that going on one diet and then another diet is bad for your health. It even makes your weight go up and down. And having your weight go up and down is not good for your health either. And changing your diet is not good for you. You have to eat for your health.
Okay.
Eat to slow aging, eat to prevent cancer, and you stay with that. Because that's because then your weight starts to lower, and then once it gets to your favorable weight for your longevity, it stays there. Because it's long-term maintenance of the same weight at your most favorable weight that leads to the longest life. When you yo-yo your weight, so I don't recommend overweight people fast. I don't recommend they water fast. I don't recommend they juice fast. I want people to learn to be consistent on a way of eating that stabilizes their weight, and they can fast once they're at a stable weight, at their lowest stable weight, if they want to do some fasting as an experiment or fasting therapeutically to help them accelerate regression of autoimmune disease. Their fasting could be a valuable tool in the hands of a physician experienced in its use, but to use it as a weight loss tool is not the right thing to do because it causes people to lose weight so fast they bounce back and regain their weight again, and it slows the metabolic rate so excessively, because we're talking about moderate slowing of the metabolic rate, it slows the metabolic rate so excessively that there's no more weight loss, and anything they eat causes weight gain. And now if they don't stay on the diet perfectly, they bounce back weight very fast, which again isn't what we want them to do. We want people to learn how to maintain a diet style long term, because it's what you do long term that's going to determine your future health anyway.
Interesting. We were talking before the podcast started about one of your older books, Eat to Live. And you said it's outdated already. So this is a book that I've recommended to a lot of people when they get started to get the basic information.
Well, it's never like, none of these books will ever become outdated. However, it's not the book I primarily recommend to people anymore, because it's too permissive. And everyone likes that. A lot of people will prefer a book that doesn't say you have to do this 100%. They want some leeway of 5 or 10% to not following the diet as strict. And for a lot of people, that's really good because they wouldn't do it if we gave them the strict version. But so it still has its role to play in utilizing it for the masses. But when we're dealing with the population of people I deal with on a regular basis, who are food addicts, yo-yo dieters, autoimmune conditions, asthmatics, people with heart disease, I don't want to give them Eat to Live, because it too much permits them not to do this perfect 100%. And so many people, if they start to dabble in the 10% or the 5% of not ideal foods, that little dabbling sucks them right into the vortex of food addictions, and they're back to yo-yoing the weight and regaining the weight again. So I'd really prefer that these people who are the people that really want to know what to do that's best to match, and that's what I'm really into. I'm really into doing what's best, not what's like a near best. And people who want to really have significant medical conditions to overcome, and people who have a history of food addiction, they really are better off with one of my later books that isn't so permissive in allowing people to cheat as much. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's great. And I definitely notice that in myself as well. If I allow myself, I follow Nutritarian food, but if I allow myself to overeat because I'm stressed, it just so easily I can fall back into my old ways. Right. So,
and the more you practice doing it right, the easier it gets. The more you link together days of 100% behavior, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then you find your taste buds improve. What I'm finding out from my 30 years of doing this is that the best results occur in people who really are really smart about it. They've done their reading, they've done their studying to become experts. And they've really done this for a long time and linked together a long time without dabbling, going on and off it, because eventually it changes the foods you prefer to eat. Your taste accommodates it better, and you start to feel like you no longer are emotionally pulled to those other foods you thought you couldn't live without, and you really start to love this. You really, it's by doing it 100% what people start to say, this is the way I really love to eat. I'd rather have your Dr. Fuhrman ice cream than a conventional ice cream because my taste is acclimated to it. It doesn't take, I don't want that super sweet chemical tasting ice cream. I want the banana ice cream made with macadamia nuts and real vanilla bean powder. And wow, that really is what I love.
Yeah.
So I eat the diet I love the most, but it just so happens to be the diet that's healthiest for you. We don't like that stuff anymore, the stuff that other people like. I think that's like disgusting stuff now.
The diet that loves you back too.
Exactly, right.
Is what I like to say. I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about, well, I guess it's a little bit the same. Dealing with food addictions. Some people are struggling at home, having a hard time. I know that I have patients that I work with, and it's hard for some people,
Yes.
right? They don't have the support. I try to share the information and link them to your website and share the books, and I feel like they're learning the information, but they're not where they need to be to reverse illness. And
Right.
like you said, to reverse illness, you got to go 100%.
Right.
So you have opened an Eat to Live retreat in Southern California.
Right.
And I know you're so excited about it, and I love that. And I'd love if you share what you're doing there and why you're so excited about this project.
After being in medical practice, and I've seen like tens of thousands of family charts. I've seen like thousands of patients, and it's such a thrill when you can get them to change their life, because it's like a famous artist drawing a new painting, like the Picasso drawing a painting and feeling, they're building the Sistine Chapel, whatever it is. But when you see a person get healthy again, it's such a great feeling that they've transformed themselves and become the person they could have always been and that they should have been, because they transform them mentally too.
Yeah.
I see people who are transformed, they lose weight, they get rid of their diabetes, but their personalities get transformed. They become happy, they're smiling all the time, they're laughing, they're creative, they're better at their jobs, they're better, you know what I mean? It's awesome.
Yeah.
So it's always been my disappointment in life when I have these people who you even care about, that don't seem to do this. And they can't do it on their own. And the most sickly people who are the most addicted are the ones who can't do it on their own. The people that are naturally a little healthier have an easier time doing it on their own. The people that need this the most are the ones who aren't able to do it. So by opening up a retreat where people come for like 8 to 12 weeks, so they come for 3 months, and I really have the best chefs in the world there. They are incredible. The food, they don't only make it taste good, but on the plate, it's like a work of art. It's just beautiful. But the place is beautiful. We have psychotherapy. They get group counseling, individual counseling. They have fun things like, Zumba and water aerobics and, walking in the mountains and biking and, it's all fun things to do in a saltwater pool, and it's beautiful things to do. But they get lectures, they get cooking classes, they get counseling, they get my medical care, but they get the time of eating great tasting food there away from their addictive triggers. They get the time to change their food preferences and learn how to eat, and learn the amount to eat, learn how to make the food, learn how to develop a taste for it, to pick out the 5 best salad dressings they love because they've had 25 different options, and they could save the ones, and they learn how to make those things. So the time they go home, they know how to do this on their own, so they can keep the process going. And it really is transformational for these people. So I give an example. It's like I have people come in there with unstable angina. But it's like, really, what are you doing here? You should be in the hospital.
Scary,
It's scary, but they get better. It's amazing how fast they get better. But people come in after playing around with diets for years and never succeeding, and they spend some time there and made this. Like one woman, Nicole, lost 50 pounds in the first 5 weeks she was there.
Wow.
And then she went home and lost another 200 pounds that year. So she lost 250 pounds that year.
Wow.
But she had never, maybe it was a year and 3 months that she lost 250 pounds, or something like that. But the bottom line is she never could lose weight and keep it off. She always yo-yoed her weight. That when people need a long-term exposure, they go to these health retreats, these immersion, whatever it is, and they go there for a week or two, and they live off of healthy food, where even if that's how they lose weight. But 99 or 98% of people go home and don't stay eating that way. What good is that? You're wasting your time and money unless you can continue to do what you learned to do when you went away. So we're really, that's the specialty here, is giving people enough time and the right type of training so when they go home, this is the way they prefer to eat, and they stick with it. Because the whole point is not to have them get well while they're there and go home and get sick again and have to come back again. We want them to spend the time there, so when they go home, they don't need doctors anymore. They're off the medic, and they're obviously I have expertise. That's my medical specialty, is weaning people off medication.
Yeah.
That is a medical specialty.
It is, because most of us don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
We're used to putting people on, and then we don't know how to wean them off.
Yeah, when you change the
Absolutely.
diet, when do you cut the blood pressure medications now?
Yep.
When do you take them off the nitrates for the heart disease? When do you stop this medication?
Yep.
When do you take the steroids off for the
Maybe
for
that
the
needs to
asthmatics?
be your next book.
Yeah, when do you stop the beta agonist before you stop the steroids? Maybe you have to increase the steroid inhalers while you're stopping the beta agonist with the asthma. Temporarily, I increase the dose of the beta of the steroids while I'm getting off the beta agonist first, and then I can ratchet down the steroids slowly over time. So there's somewhat of a experience and skill in knowing what works best when you're changing the medication to get them off to get them well as well. You know what I mean? So so they have my care there, and I do have that.
That's fantastic. That in itself is worth it. And
the food, if you just come to eat the food, it's worth it.
Yeah.
You know?
It's worth it on so many levels, because again, I have an autoimmune disease, and I know most doctors don't know how to help me with food and then taper off my medications.
Exactly.
And then when I have issues or things that bother me, it can get very specific, and you have very specific plans for this.
Right. Yeah, a person could flare up and they could say, I tried that, I can't come off the medications, I got
Right.
sick, and I got, but that's because you were taking off the medications wrong. Your proton pump inhibitors were stopped suddenly. You shouldn't have stopped the proton pump suddenly. You should have weaned from a proton pump inhibitor to an H2 blocker. And then we could have come off the H2 blocker because there's too much acid rebound. So doctors don't know how to discontinue
Right.
medications. You know what I mean? It messes people up, and they think they got to go back on the proton pump inhibitor again. You know?
True. Yeah. And I just have one more question, because I think we're running out of time here. But I want to know, you've been doing this for a long time. Is there stuff that still surprises you with the healing, or sometimes that catches you off guard even? Because I do, when I share your protocols with patients, I'm amazed at what gets better. And I can't even believe it when they come back and they're recovered. Is there anything or have you done this long enough, or is there things that you're still seeing that you're like, wow?
Well, yeah, I'm always wowed by things, but you want to always have that excitement, and it's always exciting. I have some type 1 diabetic children who got well from type 1 diabetes. That was amazing. I had some.
Wow, that is amazing.
Yeah.
Type 1 diabetes is not reversible, so
But
that's
now I'm saying that
incredible.
if you catch it right on the onset when it's first diagnosed, it's still possible to see some of these children get better. You know, I've seen some people who maybe I've given up on them. I thought they were too sick to get better. And I've seen them over time, after a couple of years, they've gotten better, because I thought, well, if they didn't get better the first year, maybe their lupus is too extreme, it's too severe, and we still need to keep them on medications. And saying, well, let's just do, you're not going to, maybe this is not going to work for you. It's helping you, but it's not going to work for you to get rid of your lupus. But then, so I kind of intellectually gave up that this was going to work for them. But then again, 2 years later, they got better.
Oh, I'd love to hear that. I hope everyone out there keep that in mind. Just keep at it, because people get better.
They get better. It
takes
longer than
Dr. Fuhrman. Yeah. So that's fantastic. So, and I want to say one last thing. For those of you who don't know, Dr. Fuhrman has three articles that have just been published this week in the International Journal of Disease Reversal and Prevention. And one of them is about plant-based anti-inflammatory diet as monotherapy for reversing completely psoriasis, autoimmune condition. And that's amazing to me as an autoimmune person. Another one is the treatment and remission, like he was talking about, type 1 diabetics. And this is an autoimmune disease that's not reversible. And he was able to put a few people in remission and lower their amount of insulin.
Right. The adults who are type 1s don't get rid of their diabetes, but they use about half to a third as much insulin. Because what I'm saying right now is very important, that the excess insulin that type 1 diabetics use dramatically shortens their lifespan and damages them. So you have to follow a nutritional protocol so you don't require so much insulin. And that's for the adult, because you can only reverse type 1 maybe if they're young enough, you know what I mean? But in any case, type 1 diabetes is not a death sentence. It doesn't have to shorten lifespan. It's the combination between the standard American way of treating diabetes. It's the diabetologists and the endocrinologists that are killing type 1 diabetics, not the type 1 diabetic diseases, because they're allowing people to eat whatever they want and cover it with insulin. They should have a fixed amount of insulin, and they say 35 units of insulin, that's max.
Yeah.
If you can't get your sugars controlled on that, you've got to really change your diet. In other words, we got to get people eating a favorable diet to keep to minimize their use of insulin, even as a type 1, and then they can live to be 95 to 100 years old. You know what I mean?
Very different.
It's not the type 1 diabetes that's killing them. It's the overuse of insulin.
Yeah.
And the highs and lows.
And maybe not getting enough phytonutrients and diversive diet to protect their body.
That's right. With the right type of diet, the type 1 diabetes doesn't become a lifespan shortening disease. And with the right type of diet, having hypothyroidism isn't a lifespan shortening disease. It's things that they don't have to fear the diseases when they eat right and minimize the use of medications.
Yeah, excellent.